Welcome to the industry breakfast. We are going to hear today, and it's our pleasure for the Honourable David Littleproud MP to give his time up to industry this morning. David has about half an hour, so we'll move things along quite quickly. At 8 o'clock, David's going to go down and open the Paddock to Plate virtual tour of lamb. And that's the bus downstairs that hopefully you may have seen. It's been going around Australia since ECA last year, where it was doing Paddock to Plate virtual reality for beef. So that's a new way of engaging with consumers around the issues of consumers understanding in our environmental sustainability credentials in industry, animal welfare credentials. Some 32,500 people have seen that footage so far, and today we're launching it for the lamb industry, the Paddock to Plate for lamb industry. So it is my great pleasure, with my glasses, to welcome David Littleproud. David is from outback Queensland and brings the can-do approach of the bush to Canberra. He was elected to Parliament in 2016 and had a rapid rise to the ranks to be appointed Minister for Agriculture and Water Resources in December 2017. He negotiated the Regional Investment Corporation through the Senate in his first week in Parliament as a minister. He's since successfully overseen the passage of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan through Parliament, delivered more support to farmers in drought, won concessions from the big banks on farm loans, and has taken substantial steps to clean up the live export trade. Minister Littleproud focuses on evidence and results. He regularly meets with farmers in local shed meetings to find out what's really happening in rural Australia. Minister Littleproud was raised on a mixed farming property near Chinchilla during hard times. After finishing school, he spent a year working on a cotton farm. It was... I wouldn't have lasted a week. I tell you what, my first jackaroo job, I was lucky to last a week. After finishing school, he spent a year working on a cotton farm before his father told him to look for work outside of agriculture. Had a similar conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome the Honourable David Littleproud.
Well, thanks, Richard, and to Michelle. Thanks for having me. And I can tell you, as a proud Queenslander that has to be here about 20 weeks a year, we only come because we have to, mate. We like to go back to where it's sunnier and the people are warmer. But nonetheless, that's how we roll in Queensland. But look, thank you for having me, and congratulations for all you do, not just for agriculture, but for this nation. You are an important cog in this nation and this nation's economy, and we should never forget that, particularly on Australian Agriculture Day. Such an important day, our national day to recognise what our farmers do for our communities, but for our economy and our nation. So it's important that we do acknowledge, and we are loud and proud about what we do and how we do it. And it's important for everyone to understand that we produce the most environmentally and ethically sustainable food and fibre in the world. We are the best. We are the very best. And no one should ever forget it. Now, there are times when we don't always get that right, and as Richard alluded to around the live export, particularly around sheep, we fixed that. We've reset the industry. And there's fault on all sides. But it's important to acknowledge it, and to acknowledge to our marketplace that we are going to get it right. We are Australians, we do it better than anyone else, but when you do the wrong thing, you will swing. That is where we will be going from now on. There will be accountability. Accountability by a regulator that will ensure that the industry's culture is set to the standard in which the marketplace expects, in which our society expects. And I'm proud to say that we will get that right with our regulator, and I'll make sure no stone is unturned. In fact, I've got a CEO of the former National Crime Commission to make sure that that last stone is unturned and any names that come out will be dealt with. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science. It's about giving confidence and transparency to our marketplace that we do produce and we do look after our animals in an ethical and sustainable way. And we will make sure that we give our national community that confidence as well. So while it's been a challenge, we should make sure that we are confident in telling people around the country that we are doing it right and we will continue to do it right. We're also facing drought, and that's not our first rodeo. Let's make it clear. There'll be more droughts. And I worry about some of the Sydney media's hysteria about this. Yes, there is pain. Make no mistake. I've sat at farmers' kitchen tables. In fact, I was a bank manager that used to sit at farmers' kitchen tables through drought. They'll come again, but the good times will also come. Despite the fact of this drought, we've had a peak year of agriculture of $64 billion, but this year we're still projected to hit $60 billion despite the drought. So that says that agriculture is on a trajectory. It's on a trajectory because we have innovated. We have continued to adapt. And that's what agriculture has done since we first put a till in the soil in this country. And we should be proud about that. And people talk about climate change and about agriculture being part of that. Well, we're well ahead of metropolitan Australia. We've been on that journey for a couple of hundred years. We've been adapting to the climate. In fact, I'm proud to say that MLA have set the course in being carbon neutral by 2030. Agricultural emissions account for 17%. We're doing our heavy lifting. We don't need to cut herds. We can do it through science and technology, through cutting edge, using the brightest minds in this nation, and we do have them, particularly in the research and development. Our human capital is the most important we have. And I can tell you it's important that we talk up agriculture so that we bring the next generation of young people home to agriculture. We bring them back to regional and rural Australia. That's the story that we need to tell. That's the loud and proud story about agriculture. There's a quid to be made in agriculture. And if you're not fortunate enough to have the capital to go back on the land or inherit a property, there are career pathways in agriculture, in science and technology, in support services. I had a 20-year career supporting agriculture. And those are the stories we have to tell. For those poor people that live in metropolitan Australia, and if they're lucky to live on 400 square metres of dirt with a 6-foot colour-bond fence, good luck to them, but that's not living. That's not living. Living in regional and rural Australia and having a career pathway and having a lifestyle for you and your family is what it's about. And as the Agriculture Minister, my responsibility is not just to agriculture, it's to regional and rural Australia. So whether you're directly a farmer or you're in a support service to agriculture, be loud and proud and make sure everybody in metropolitan Australia understands exactly what we do and how we do it. Because if we don't, we will get governments that impose a social will on us that is ignorant to our values as primary producers in an agricultural sector. So we need to make sure that we educate and articulate exactly what we are doing and how we do it every day of the week. And I'm proud to say that MLA has done a great job, and I'm going to continue to invest in research and development. I want to create another pillar within agriculture, research, development and science. We've done a great job. Our RDCs, like our MLA, have done an amazing job taking us to where we are today. But I want to make sure we're fit for the future. I want to make sure that I can get more money, more investment into our research and development to keep that human capital investing their energy, their career pathways in agriculture. So I've set on a course to try and encourage more commercial investment. I've only got so much that I can spend. Josh Frydenberg can be a bit tough sometimes in cutting a bigger cheque. So I've got to find ways to empower organisations like MLA to do more and give them the capital, give them the opportunity to think big, to think blue sky, to take the risks, to put the environment around them to take the risks, to be able to get better returns at the farm gate, to get better returns for regional and rural Australia. And I don't have any more money, I've got to be honest with you. But what I can do is create an environment where we encourage commercial entities, also foreign states, to invest in our people, in our research and development. Unlock the potential and create another pillar within agriculture. And that's the important and exciting thing that we're on the cusp of doing, because we do have the best minds in the world. So I'm passionate about making sure I unlock that potential for your organisations like MLA to get better bang for buck. And we collaborate better across all the research development corporations so they understand exactly what each one's doing and we can share and learn off one another to get better returns for you. Because that's what blows my hair back, is to make you more money so you employ people. Governments don't employ people, business employs people, because the jobs that we create, you pay for anyway. So it's important that I empower you to make a quid, to you employ regional and rural Australians. So unlocking their potential is one of those ways. We're also making sure we understand our place in the world. Let me say, we're a nation of 25 million people. We produce enough food for 75. If we don't engage the world, then we don't have regional communities, we don't have agriculture. It's as simple as that. The math's not hard. I'm just a bloke from Western Queensland, educated to year 12. You don't need a university degree to understand the simple maths of that. So we have to engage the world. And we're doing that through the trade agreements. And I've got to say that Stephen Chobo was one of the best friends to agriculture we've ever had. The TPP-11, a $13.7 trillion marketplace that we now have access to. A $15.4 billion benefit to the Australian economy, and agriculture's at the top of that. We're working through with Indonesia. We're getting close to signing off on that agreement. But we've got China, Japan, South Korea, Peru. These are the agreements that we're putting in place. But my job as Agriculture Minister is to make sure we get the market access. And that's why we've invested in the last budget an extra $51 million to put 6 more agricultural counsellors into embassies and high commissions around the world. We've got 16 already. And their job is to get market access, commodity by commodity, and break down those technical barriers. But we want to give it more grunt. So we're going to put 6 more, and for the first time, 2 will go into South America. Because we're not just going to look to the north, we're going to pivot to the right now, and we're going to look to South America. We're going to make sure that we open up opportunities. We give you opportunities. Our job as a federal government is to not produce for you, but to put the environment and infrastructure around you. And the environment is around trade agreements and giving you market access. So you can say to those big supermarkets that might want to come talk to you, that's great to be in the kitchen, but there's someone else now. I can send it off on a boat or a plane somewhere else, so we're going to negotiate on different terms. That's what our job's to do. So we're going to continue to put more money into making sure that we give you the market access that you need, to give you the options. That's all we can do for you. If you think I can do any more, I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you right here I can't. We're not a bottomless pit of money. There's Australian taxpayers' money and we've got to spend it wisely. So our investment needs to be strategic, an investment in you, in that environment and infrastructure around you, and that's what we'll continue to do. So what I say to you is that we should be positive. We should be loud and proud about what we do, and we should never let anyone forget it, because if we don't, agriculture will get lost. We have to be honest about that. We have to understand that the dynamics of this nation is changing. 30, 40 years ago, most people in metropolitan Australia, an uncle and aunt and a cousin lived in the bush. They came out and understood what we did. They don't now. So it's important that we engage. And I saw innovative ways today that at the supermarket we can engage, we can tell our story. People want to know the provenance of their food and fibre more than anything. So we hold the keys, but we've all got to grasp it, because the window of opportunity is there, but unless we do it together, we'll miss the boat. So to each and every one of you, can I say thank you. Thank you for being part of what is the greatest industry in this nation. I'm proud to be the Australian Agriculture Minister, because there's no one better than us. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We're very proud to have you as well. Thank you very much. We will take a few questions. We do have about 10 minutes for questions if anyone would like to ask any questions of the Minister. If I could just ask you to stand, say who you are and where you're from. We have revolving microphones. Okay, so Hamish.
Malcolm Cater from Warren, sheep producer. I get very worried that the government is pouring money into research and development against marketing. I think we're starting another bureaucracy, and we've got enough of that in the bush now, sir. And I think, I listened to you and Dubbo the other day, and there was a good speech, and thank you for being passionate. But don't start New Zealand flog us on this one setup. We've just got too many people trying to tell us how to run it. We've got feeders who don't shave telling us how to run the drought, and I really get a bit stirred up about that. Thank you.
Well, let me tell you. Yeah, me too. I had mine this morning. Let me say to you quite clearly, my whole philosophy is to get the hell out of your life and empower you. That's all I can do. With respect to the RDCs and what I'm asking EY to do is to make sure we do have an overarching look, not at the function of our RDCs at the moment, but have a look at their future. Are they fit for future? And that's exactly the question I want to ask, and make sure that we do set it on a pathway that gets returns at the farm gate and at regional rural Australia. That's the important thing that I want to do. A light touch. We need a regulatory touch when it's required, but the best thing I can do is get the hell out of your life and let you make a quid. Can I say also, today we're also announcing that we in fact now are going to have a refined definition of lamb. It's taken over a decade, but I've signed the paperwork. I was jack of it. We got it. We got, in essence, industry to agree, and with science that the MLA came up with, we will now align ourselves with the same definition as New Zealand. So in terms of those export markets, as of today, we're on that journey. Done and dusted, and that's what you want from your government, is to be led by an industry solution, and then for us to get done and get the hell out of your life. So I'm happy to get out of your life because there's less belly aches for me.
Yes, Minister. John Buxton from East Gippsland. There's a few really tough issues. The cost of doing business is right out of control, and I'm not hearing anything in Canberra about any possible solutions to tackle it. Energy, where are the meat processors? I'm sure they'll be lining up to take a piece of your hide on that one. The labour market needs reform, has had, nobody's prepared to touch it. And a simple way that you could do something about reducing the input costs is abolish fuel tax. It's National Party core business, sir. Impacts very heavily on rural Australia, leverages the cost of everything, both into the farm and out of the farm, all the way to the export, all the way to the port. So how about you put that one on the agenda too?
Righto. Well, let me tell you about electricity. We had this thing called the NEG. Politically, it was dumb. It was us trying to lead. It was us trying to coordinate the states in about having a uniformed approach to reliability and renewable energy. We were fantastic in trying to lead this. You know what? That's what a national government should do. But politically, it was dumb. It was the worst thing we can do, because the reality is we didn't have the solution because the states hold the solution. All we can do is put an environment around the marketplace for people to invest in whatever is the cheapest form of energy, whether that be coal or wind or solar, or whatever it may be. The rest is undertaken by the states. And effectively, let me tell you, I'm from the state of Queensland, and we're having a fat old time on you down in Victoria. $1.85 billion a year the state government rakes in as a dividend, just as a dividend, thank you very much, from their government-owned corporations in generation and distribution. But the generation piece, we're having a grand old time on the rest of on the eastern market. But we decided to get ourselves on the sticky paper, and we've got to take an uppercut for that. It was dumb. We didn't have the levers to pull to fix it, and that wasn't the smartest thing we've ever done. We've got to be honest about that. And as someone that's had to negotiate the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, let me tell you, hurting the states is one of the hardest things that you can ever do. Our forefathers put a great constitution together and we created federation, but there are some limitations to federation, and we don't have constitutional powers that reach everywhere, despite what people might think. So I've got to be honest with you, we didn't have the powers to reach in and change that, but we now have an opportunity to put pressure on the state government. I've called the state government in Queensland to put a food and fibre tariff, paying 25 cents a kilowatt. Even in Victoria and Tas, you're paying less than us. But the same token is that our processors, our meat industry is employing over 400,000 Australians. There's a drought coming for them as soon as it rains, let me tell you. There's a real challenge for them coming up. So we've got to get away from the petty politics, and that's, in terms of the Murray-Darling, what I try to do, and I think we need to do that with power. We need to make sure that the states come on that journey. These GOCs and the distribution, 47% of your bill is fees and charges. Fees and charges. That's insanity. So the reality is we've got to do the right thing there, and we've got to bring the states on the journey. We tried to lead, but they're not going to do it. They didn't want to come on that journey with us, and it blew up, cost the Prime Minister his job, effectively. Let's be honest. So, we've got to keep working along with the states on that, take the politics out of it, take the heat out of it, and look for common sense. Because ultimately, you don't care. You don't care who gives you the solutions, you just want outcomes. You don't care whether it's a state or federal government, but you want outcomes. And that's the challenge we have, is that we don't have all the power to reach across on everything. So I understand the input costs, the labour piece. Obviously, there's been reports about my candour. Some people decided to leak about my conversations in Cabinet on labour in the agricultural sector. I'm very passionate about that. I've sat in packing sheds, I've sat in abattoirs, I've listened to people on the ground zero about what the challenges are. Let me tell you, we have to understand that we've got to do something about that. Now, we've taken a first step, and that's around the unskilled labour piece, but we've still got some work to do, and I think you'll see there'll be more announcements. We've got 700,000 Australians that are unemployed. 430,000 of those have a skill. Now, I respect anyone's right to make a lifestyle choice about where they live, but I sometimes question, should the Australian taxpayer subsidise that lifestyle choice? I had 8 towns in about 6 years, because that's where the work was. At some point, people got to get off their rear end and go and make a living. And if that means you've got to go to Roma or to Gippsland to make a quid, well, that's where you go. And we can't make people do it, but they shouldn't expect the taxpayer to subsidise someone's lifestyle choice. So in fuel, obviously, that's a real challenge for every government. In fact, some of my National Party colleagues, I don't know whether you saw yesterday, are looking for a Royal Commission, particularly into our supermarkets. Their influence not only on the agriculture sector, but also in terms of fuel. So you'll see some announcements, not necessarily around that, because obviously that's not government policy yet. And as the Prime Minister said previously, you never say never to a Royal Commission, as we've learnt. So the reality is there are some more things that will be done around fuel, and those types of cost of livings are big pressures that we're cognizant of, definitely. As I said, we want to get out of your life as best we can.
This is Mark McClintock from Cootamundra. What's the chances of us farmers surviving Shorten?
You know what? I'm not going to get into that. But you know what? In all honesty, there are 226 politicians there. Genuinely, they are there mostly for the right reason. Some of it, unfortunately, some of their philosophies and decision making is predicated on ignorance and lack of understanding. That doesn't make them bad people, but I want to take, and I've never called people names, and I don't think that's constructive, because I've always taken the stance that it is about outcomes. And I've always made sure that I've tried to bring Joel Fitzgibbon with me on policy that I brought, because you know what? I know that I'm not going to be here forever as the Agriculture Minister, but my legacy needs to be that the policy dial doesn't shift on you. Because if it does, I've failed you. I've failed you if the other mob get in and they shift wildly in another direction. So I'm not going to get in to petty politics and name calling, because that's not constructive. That's not going to advance your livelihoods or people that I represent. That's what blows my hair back, is get up in the morning and look after those 150,000 people that live in Maranoa, and then as the Australian Agriculture Minister, that third of the population that lives in regional rural Australia. How I get it won't be done by name calling, it'll be by trying to get an outcome, because that's what's more important. That's what's important to me. I've been fortunate enough, I've never left my electorate. I've been fortunate enough to have a career, start a business, raise 3 boys. My legacy should be that every regional rural Australian should be able to do that, whether it's my mob or the other mob, and my responsibility is work with the other mob as best I can to make sure they don't hurt you, and calling them names won't help.